everyone. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Allison.
And this is Nerd of the Week, a randomly generated fandom podcast. So this week's word is what, kind generator?
Du, 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 du.
The word of the week is Sunday.
Sunday!
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday.
On this week's Sunday Monster Truck Rally.
We did this at the end of the last episode.
Yeah, we did. It gives me joy. We are consistent.
All right. For a definition, this one might be a weird definition, I guess.
It certainly is.
So it is the proper name of the day that can either be viewed as the final or the first day of the week, depending on how you want to read the calendar.
So Google says it's a noun, which I guess is fair.
Okay.
The day of the week before Monday and following Saturday.
Okay, sure.
Forming part of the weekend. So, I guess.
I guess.
Thanks,
Thanks, Google.
These are true statements. I guess the other...
I would hope most definitions are true statements.
I wonder what it says for Sunday, like the ice cream. That's not spelled the same.
An ice cream dessert made with traditionally vanilla and chocolate ice cream and toppings. I don't know.
A dish of ice cream with added ingredients such as fruits, nuts, syrup, and whipped cream. And then the little, like, extra...
You know what? I can top my ice cream with whatever I want. What if I want to top it with cereal and candy bars?
Right? That would also be a sundae. I agree. This is completely valid. And it did the, like, it's 284 calories for a sundae thing. Like it did for jam, where it just declared that...
That sounds a little bit low.
That seems low for a sundae. Like, what is the serving size? Is it, like, a scoop? Like, give me more information. The serving size is amount per one sundae.
I wonder if, like, there's some, like, low-calorie, single-serving sundae or something that's on the market that they stole that from.
Very possible. But, like, this...
I don't know. I would picture a sundae being, like, thousands of calories.
Right. Also, it's sourcing the USDA, so I have no rhyme or reason for any of this.
Wow, okay. Maybe it's healthier if you have just one scoop of ice cream with added fruits and maybe a small dollop of whipped cream. Maybe I could buy it being, what, 240?
Yeah, 284.
84, okay. Maybe.
Ice cream's got a lot of calories in it.
Yeah.
Also, random origin, because it's just makes me crack up, is its origin may be the late 19th century, perhaps an alteration of the word Sunday, either because the dish was made with ice cream left over from Sunday and sold cheaply on the Monday, or because it was sold only on Sundays, a practice devised, according to some accounts, to circumvent Sunday legislation, but doesn't tell me what that legislation was. And this is another rabbit hole that I'm accidentally gonna go down.
Oh, no.
What was the Sunday regulation? What was the ice cream rules in the late 19th century?
I have no idea. I've never heard anything about this.
I will report back once I learn more.
Are you learning more right now as we speak?
No.
Okay. I didn't know if this was a Wikipedia hole right now or if this is a Wikipedia hole later.
New podcast plan is the nonsense that we spew in this podcast is then talked about in a different podcast where it's like Steph's Wikipedia corner and it's just the rabbit holes I go down where I just report any information I've learned.
We could put that out on the off weeks.
There you go.
Yeah. That'd be great. All right, let's get on that.
All right.
Maybe that's something we could put on our YouTube, is little videos of you scrolling on the internet.
Yeah, here's very...
You could stream it. You could stream it on Twitch.
Very riveting content of me aggressively reading Wikipedia articles going, yes. in an oversized hoodie and sweatpants.
Oh my goodness. Okay, cool. Well,
All right.
stay tuned for that maybe happening then,
Maybe.
listeners.
We'll report it to you on a podcast or on our social media pages if I decide to go down this rabbit hole.
Until then, today we are going to talk about media here on this podcast.
This is true.
We are actually recording this on Sunday as well.
We are recording this on a Sunday.
Yeah,
Fancy
usually
schmancy.
we're not a Sunday record type of people.
Type of gals.
But we are today. All right. So I've brought us a lovely film called Amélie, and it is a French film with English subtitles. And I don't remember the year that it came out because I'm not prepared.
Understood. I was going to ask, how do you spell Amélie?
It's Amelie. All right, so this was made in 2001.
Okay.
So it's kind of old at this point. As I said, it...
2001 can't be old. Quiet. No, shh.
Okay, sorry. No, it's made just over in 2001. Not that old at all.
Not that old at all. It's fine.
All right, so it is, as I said, a French film in French, filmed in Paris, and it actually won a lot of nominations here in America for like best foreign film and things like that.
Okay.
It stars Audrey Tautou, who I believe was also in the Da Vinci Code. I think that is like her claim to fame, but
yeah,
also this movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know anything else that she's in. But anyway, she is the character Amélie, and this movie is kind of just like major slice of life, kind of, where it's like very mundane. There's not a huge amount of plot, but it also is a love story, which is adorable, and I will get into that. So it starts out also like being very specific about dates, and that is how we will get to Sunday later on. But it first says like, on this day in 1986 or whatever, gosh, I don't even remember, there was a blue fly that landed in this street and was run over by a car. And at the same time, there was a wind in a garden that picked up the tablecloth and made these glasses on top of it dance around like they were in a ballet. And just like these random little scenes of like tiny little things that you wouldn't notice, except they're drawing attention to it. And it's very interesting like that. So then we meet Amélie's parents, and her father is a doctor and her mom is a school teacher, and her dad, they do these things where it's like, name 3 fun facts about yourself, except they're just like telling us these fun facts in a voiceover. So like her dad likes to dump out his tool chest and dust it out and then put everything back in an orderly manner. And her mom likes to, oh gosh, what does her mom like to do? I don't remember. It was something mundane though, like just this little simple joy in life essentially. Apparently when Amélie was a little girl, her dad, who's a doctor, would give her like monthly exams or whatever. And she was always like so, I guess, nervous and also excited for them that her heart would beat really, really fast. And so he thought that she had a heart condition. And as a result said that she was unfit for school, which I call questionable on that. Because that doesn't seem legit.
No, I don't think so.
But they had to find some sort of plot device that would keep her from going to school, I guess. And that was it. So she wasn't allowed to go to school, and her mom, who conveniently had been a school teacher, became her homeschool teacher, and so she was taught at home. They had this one fun, interesting scene where she was given a camera one day and just, like, sent out on her own to just take pictures of whatever she wanted. As she was taking pictures of something, though, there was, like, a car crash right in front of her, and some neighbor, being kind of like a jerk, basically came up to her and was like, little girl, look what you've done by taking the pictures with your camera. You caused the accident. And so then she goes home and she's watching the news that night and she's seeing all these disasters that are happening across the world and thinking like, oh my gosh, I caused every single one of these because I was taking pictures all day long.
Oh no.
But then she comes to her senses and realizes that no, this is not true. That neighbor was really just being a jerk. And so we see that she's kind of not necessarily petty, but like she wants vengeance. Like that's kind of her personality.
Okay.
So she like finds a way to get vengeance on him. So every weekend he likes to watch the football match, or the soccer game for those of us in America. And she climbs up on his roof and locates like his cable antenna. And she's listening to the soccer game on the radio. So whenever they're like getting close to the goal and like someone's about to score, she unplugs his TV antenna so that his TV stops working. He gets so angry about it. So he's able to watch the game, just none of the important parts of it. And he, like basically that's how she gets revenge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's just like a little snippet of her childhood life. Then kind of disaster strikes because she and her mother go to Notre Dame they're praying for a baby boy. However, as they're leaving the cathedral, there's an American tourist who's trying to commit suicide from the top of the cathedral, and when she jumps, she lands on top of Emily's mom and kills her. So then it's just Amelie and her dad now.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So, very, like, all these little kind of events kind of things. Amelie grows up and leaves home and lives actually in Paris. Before they were just, like, living in a little suburb. But now she has a little apartment in Paris, and she works at a cafe called the Two Windmills. And she has these coworkers, and we kind of learn a little bit about each of them. So, the owner of the Two Windmills, she was a circus performer, but then she had to quit because she fell off her horse and broke her leg, and she's kind of an older lady. And then there's another lady, Georgette, who is the ex-lover of one of the regular patrons of the Two Windmills, and the ex-lover, I forgot his name. Oh gosh, really not prepared here. Doesn't matter what his name is. He's not a very big player in the story.
Fair enough.
But he basically comes to the cafe every day and like sits there with a recorder and basically like reports to himself everything she's doing. Like he's kind of a stalker and like kind of creepy, but
understood.
There's nothing they can really do about him because he's not really hurting anything. But he's one of those guys who's like, oh my gosh, she like looked at another man, she hates me kind of thing. And then there's another lady. Oh my gosh, what is her name? So I'm so sorry. The one lady we just talked about, she was Gina. Georgette is the tobaccoist, so she works at the tobacco counter or whatnot. Those are kind of the main co-workers. So we just kind of see Amelie going about her day-to-day business, going to the cafe, yada yada. And then the day that changes her life is August 31st. And this is the day that Princess Diana was killed in a car crash. And so Amelie was getting ready for bed, and she has like a bottle of like perfume or something in her hand, and she drops the lid of it, and it's a round lid, and like she's in shock at looking at the TV. It rolls in her old apartment because the floor is tilted. It rolls and like smacks into this tile on the side of her bathroom wall, and it kind of like loosens the tile. She now gets distracted by that. She's no longer watching the news. And she reaches behind the tile and finds that there's like this little hidden compartment, and she pulls out this old like tin box that has all these little mementos of someone's childhood in it. And she picks it up and she realizes like, wow, I wonder who lived here. I wonder whose box this is. Maybe they're still around and I can give it back to them. So she decides right then, that is when her life changes. Instead of being mundane and just like going to work and coming back home, she's gonna like find who this guy is and become a regular do-gooder. That's what the subtitles say.
A regular do-gooder.
Yep, do-gooder. So she's gonna try and like do acts of kindness to people. But anyway, the reason this fits with Sunday is because that year, August 31st, 1997, was a Sunday. Or it was like, that was a Saturday, and then Amelie had this revelation on the Sunday. So anyway, that's how we got this with Sundays, because they were very specific about the dates of when her life changed. So she first goes down the next day. She talked to the concierge of the apartment complex, and she says, do you know who lived in my flat back in the 50s? And the concierge says, oh, I don't know. Oh, but come and talk to me. You know, she's kind of a lonely old lady, and she invites Amelie in. And she, for whatever reason, goes on and on about her husband who was in the war, but then a few years later he cheated on her and moved to Colombia with the mistress, and she's so sad about it. And then he died in a car crash. And she shows Amelie these letters that he'd sent her during the war, and they were like so lovey-dovey, like, I can't wait to get back to you, my dearest heart, and, you know, cute things like that. And Amelie's like kind of sad for this lady. But anyway, she doesn't know who lived in the flat. She says, go talk to the grocer. So she goes and talks to the grocer, who is Conignon, and with him works kind of this little, like, slightly disabled guy, Lucien. He's really sweet. He just, like, he can't use one of his arms, and he's a little slow, but he's a really nice guy. And Conignon is very, very mean to him, and, like, makes fun of him all the time, and Amelie hates that, because she really likes Lucien. He's a good guy. So she's gonna try and get back at him somehow eventually. Anyway, Conignon says, well, I don't know. Ask my mother, though. She'll know who it was. She keeps all those records. So now Amelie's journey takes her to Colignon's mom and dad, and she's like talking with the dad first, and he's like, you're looking for a Mr. Brodato, but don't ask me, I'm senile. And the wife like comes out of the house with her record book and says, stop talking, you're senile. And then she like looks it up and finds that it's, yes, Mr. Brodato. And like the husband was right this whole time. So now she has a hit. She knows who she's supposed to be finding. Okay. So she goes and looks up in the phone book, this Monsieur Brodato, and there's 3 entries. So she has 3 options of where it could be. There's funny scenes of her traveling literally all across Paris to find these people. Like, I think she could have found a better train route to visit them, but she's like going backwards and forwards, and she could have gone in a circle, but she didn't, essentially. None of these are the people she's looking for. Like, one of them is a really young guy. One of them, so the name is actually Dominique Brodato, and so one of them actually is a lady, because that could be a male or female name. And then the other one, the guy had just died, and he was like way too old to have been this guy anyway. So she's heartbroken. She's feels listless and lost. She thinks that her quest to do good is at an end, and she's like sadly walking up the stairs. And just then one of her neighbors comes out onto the landing, and he is Raymond Dufayel. They call him, quote, the glass man, because he has some disease that makes his bones really, really brittle. So he basically stays inside all the time, and all of his furniture is, like, super padded so he doesn't hurt himself. And Amelie's like, I've never met you before. I've lived here for 5 years. And he's like, I'm picky about who I meet. And somehow he knows exactly what she's doing. And she says, the reason you can't find the guy you're looking for is because it's not Brodado, it's Brodato with a T, not a D.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very specific. So, and he invites her into his little apartment for some wine and cookies. And apparently, he like shows her his painting. He's a painter. Every year, it takes him a year to do this, but he copies the Luncheon of the Boating Party by Renoir. And he says that the one person who he can never get the look right is this girl right in the center who's drinking a glass of water. And he says something like, she just doesn't fit in with the rest of the crowd. And when he says this, it kind of like becomes a metaphor for Amelie. And whenever Amelie goes and visits him in the future and they like talk about things, they reference what's going on in Amelie's life based on like the little story that they've created for this girl in the painting. Okay. And like how she can't relate to others, but you know, maybe there's something else that she's thinking about, and you know, things like that.
Kind of cute.
Yeah, it is kind of cute. He also has this weird little tape recorder that he has pointed outside his window down to the bank below because it has a clock. And Amelie says, why are you doing this? Like, why aren't you using the recorder for something else? And he says, oh, because now I don't have to wind my clocks. So he just, like, has this clock projected on his TV 24/7 instead of winding his own clocks.
I guess.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Whatever works.
Yeah, whatever. So, anyway, she now has the correct name to get this box to this guy.
Okay.
The morning that she's on her mission to do this, she comes down the stairs, and in the grocer's door, he's left his keys. And, she's on a mission to do good, so she grabs the keys and she's going to take them down to the grocer and give them back. She gets there, and he's, making fun and saying mean things to poor little Lucian again. And she decides, no, this is the day we're going to get back at this guy. So she takes the keys to a key cutter to be copied.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so now she has a copy, and she just goes and puts the keys back in his door, so he'll find them when he comes home, essentially.
Right.
He'll have them back, but she also has a copy.
I see.
On that later. First, we have to deliver the box to Brodato. So, somehow she found out that every day, or every Monday, he goes to the chicken market to buy a chicken to cook for the rest of the week.
Okay.
So somehow, in this movie, she has a way where she can go to a payphone and call another payphone. So remember, this is all taking place in the 90s, so payphones were still very much a thing, especially in Paris.
Yeah.
So, as he's walking by the payphone, it's ringing. And I guess it's just a thing that if the payphone is ringing, you go answer it to figure out what it is.
Wouldn't know as
I don't
wired
know.
millennial.
Exactly. So, someone who is more knowledgeable on payphones than us, let us know what's going on here.
I am too young to know. I think I used a payphone once in my life, legitimately.
I don't know if I've ever used one. But anyway, he goes into the little phone booth, and she hangs up on her end of the line immediately. And he's like, oh, that's weird. And as he's hanging the phone up, he sees his little box. And he's opening it up, and he's looking at all of his little memorabilia. There's a picture of him from when he was playing soccer. And then there's a little collection of marbles. And we see this flashback to the day he won all the marbles when he was a child on the playground. And his pockets, all the marbles, but his pockets ripped because they were too full, and all the other kids laughed at him. But he still had
too many marbles.
Too many marbles. But anyway, just these, I guess, pleasant memories at this point for him. But he's just stunned, oh my gosh, this little box that I'd completely forgotten about. It's found its way back to me. So he goes into a little bar that's nearby, and Amelie is sitting there as well, just kind of watching what's happening. And he's talking it's crazy what just happened. It must be my guardian angel. And you know what? I've got a daughter myself, and she has a little boy now. And I should probably call them before I'm in a box myself. Which, wow, that's very dark. But Amelie feels really, really good about this. She's like, yeah, I made a difference. I'm reunited a family by giving this box back. So she has this really bright, happy outlook on life. She's walking through the Paris streets. She comes across he's a character that we kind of see in and out of scenes. He's a blind guy. I don't know if he's homeless or just kind of poor. But he's in a few times he's in the subway with a record player, and people give him little tips. But we actually see him come into the cafe at one point and buy some cigarettes from the tobaccoist. So I'm not sure what his whole deal is, but he is blind.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it.
So anyway, she takes him by the hand, and she's walking him through the streets and describing everything that's going on. So they walk past a baker, and she's like, look, there's cupcakes and muffins. And then she walks past the butcher, and she says, there's a dog watching the chickens, and there's a baby watching the dog. And this guy's just flooded with all sorts of sensory input that he normally wouldn't have, just because she's helping him and guiding him through all this. And they get to the metro station. She's like, and this is where I must leave you. And he stands there, and there's these weird early 2000s special effects where he just starts glowing.
Oh,
yeah.
As you do.
As you do, yeah. This movie is full of every now and again just weird little special effects that absolutely didn't need to be there. But
someone was just having fun. Okay.
Exactly. They could do it, so they did.
Fair enough.
So he's just there glowing, and it's wonderful. Amelie then, she's in the metro, and she sees this guy digging around underneath a photo booth. It's one of those photo booths where they take 4 little photos and it prints out for you immediately. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So he's digging around under that, and Amelie like looks at him, and we get a flashback to his past. The narrator tells us that when Amelie had too few friends, this guy Nino had too many. And we see that he was like bullied in school, and all these other kids, they've like picked him up by his shoulders and legs and they've put him into the trash can.
Oh.
It's so sad. And then we also, there's something, an illusion of like these two actually kind of knew each other as children, because they were like 5 miles apart in Paris. But they like have this scene where they both have little mirrors and they're like reflecting the light off the mirrors towards each other.
Okay.
So it's like they were kind of communicating, but they probably didn't know that it was each of themselves. They probably just like saw this weird little flash of light in the distance. So that was kind of a strange little coincidence as well. But like nothing really happens in this encounter. Just like she looks at him and he looks at her and she like rushes on by. It's very, very interesting. A few more just kind of like random little mundane things happen. When we get back to the two windmills, they're trying to like get the random guy to stop stalking Gina. And what Amelie decides to do, she decides to instead make Georgette be the focus of his attentions. So she like goes up to him and she's like, haven't you heard enough people already? And he says, Gina can stick up for herself. What are you doing? And Amelie's like, no, Georgette, look at the things she does for you. And Georgette is a bit of a hypochondriac. Is that the right word? When you think you're sick, but you're not?
All the time? Yeah, hypochondriac. Yeah.
So she like always thinks like she has like pneumonia when someone opens the door, and she's like allergic to cigarette smoke, and she gets a rash all the time, which there's no rash there. But she's like, Amelie says, look at what she does to get your attention. She's sitting there like putting eye drops into her eye. But conveniently, her counter is like right in front of the table that this guy always sits at. And that kind of like gets him thinking like, oh, another lady wants my attention. And then later Amelie like kind of does the same thing to Georgette and like says, look, he always sits right at this table. It's right across from where you always sit. So just think about that. So she kind of like gets them together and they like kind of have a little fling, and it's kind of short-lived, but like for a hot second, they're real happy.
Okay.
Another interesting thing that happens that Amelie is part of is she finds in the newspaper that there was a plane that was recently recovered in the Alps that was a mail plane, and it was like 60 years late delivering letters to people. But they're
My brain auto-corrected it as like, why is it a male plane and not a female plane? Oh no. I'm sorry. I needed to share. Continue.
I love that. That's perfect. So, anyway, it was carrying these letters that were now finally being delivered. And Amelie just kind of like puts that in the back of her brain to think about. Mm-hmm. Now, she's finally going to get back also at Collignon the grocer. So she breaks into his apartment, just kind of like snoops around at first. She like takes note of the size of his slippers. She looks at his light bulbs. While she's there at first, she does put salt in his wine. And she also switches the handle on his bathroom door. So on one side, it's a turn knob, and on the other side, it's like a lever kind of thing.
Okay.
And she just switches which side is which, so that it's like not automatic of like what he does in the morning. And then she also resets his alarm so that it goes off at like 3 a.m. instead of whenever he would normally wake up.
Okay.
So the next day, he wakes up at like 3 a.m. He's not... like, his alarm goes off. He doesn't think anything of it. Of course, it must be time to awaken. So he does. And he's, like, all groggy and going to the bathroom. And he, like, tries to, like, hit the lever on the doorknob, but it's not there. And he, like, looks at it, and it's, like, the turn knob instead. And he's all surprised, like, what? What? But he gets into his bathroom, and then he's trying to brush his teeth, but she'd also switched out the toothbrush and the foot cream. So he brushes his teeth with foot cream.
Ew.
Yeah, I know.
Ew.
And then he's going to work, and like the streets are eerily quiet, and like there's a cat that runs by, and he's like, this isn't right. And he's just like in a state of shock of like, what has happened here? Why is everything wrong? But so she started getting her revenge. For whatever reason, she kind of feels sorry for herself whenever she's alone at night, which I guess it's not for whatever reason. I can get that sometimes. She's just thinking too much. She's watching the TV and there's
We've all been there.
We've all been there. But she's watching TV and they're like having a memorial for Princess Diana and saying of like all the great things that she did. But Amelie in her head, she's replacing all the names of Princess Diana with Amelie. And they're saying like, and sweet Amelie, let her poor tired body merge with the woes of the universe. And she's just like crying there. And she's like, and her only regret was that she didn't let her father have the same happy life that she afforded to so many others. And with that, she gets a great idea. So she goes to visit her father. Yeah, he recently had
great
dug
idea.
up, but he had recently, from his flower shed, dug up this old garden gnome that her mother had hated. So that's why it was kept in the shed. But he's recently decided, let's take it out of the shed, spruce it up a little bit. And he actually has like this weird little shrine to her mother in the backyard. It's not like her gravesite. It's just like a little memorial, essentially. And for whatever reason, he decides she hated this gnome, but let's reconcile them. I'm going to cement the gnome to the top of the shrine. So he's done that.
That seems like some I really don't like you. Here, sit with this gnome you hated for the rest of the universe. But that's fine. This is appropriate.
He meant it like that. I don't think he did.
Okay.
But anyway, Amelie like goes to his house. It's kind of late at night and he's already gone to bed and locked up the door so she can't get in. And she's about to like throw a pebble out his window to wake him up when she like sees the gnome and she gets a better idea. So she pries the gnome off of the top of the shrine and she decides to like take it home with her. Her grand scheme is that she's going to give it to one of her friends who's a flight attendant and have her take pictures of the gnome all over the world and have these mailed to her father. Basically to convince him like, look, you got to get out there and travel. You got to live your life, man. So throughout the rest of the movie, the father's just like getting these random postcards from the gnome, which is kind of funny.
I love that. That's really funny.
It is funny. But anyway, while she's in the metro station with the gnome, she comes across Nino at the photo booth again, digging around underneath it. And he like looks up and like the way they film it makes it look like he's making eye contact with her. And then we like see this weird little like X-ray vision of her heart and it's like beating really fast again. But he wasn't actually looking at her. He was looking at a man behind her who he starts chasing after. And the guy's like too far ahead. He's already gotten his car and Nino gets on his like little electric pedal bike. And Amelie is running after him. Nino like almost crashes into a car that's coming the other direction in his mad dash to catch up with this guy and loses a cargo bag off the back of the bike, which Amelie then picks up. Inside here is this photo book of all of these random photos that Nino has collected from under the photo booths all these years and like pieced back together. Like they're all shredded up because people have like torn them up and thrown them away essentially, and some get blown out of the trash or whatever. And he just like pieces them back together like little puzzle pieces and keeps them in this weird book. And she's like, I have to get this back to him somehow. So that's her like next big do good kind of thing. The next day in the metro sees he's put up signs on all the photo booths asking about this book that he's lost. Like, I need it back. If you found it, call this number. So the narrator says, any logical person would just call the number, but Amelie is too scared. Which I feel that so much.
It's such a mood.
It is.
I feel called out.
Right? So anyway, she finally gets up the courage to call, and it's like this adult like video store. And
oh god.
It's like the worst case scenario. Like, this is the reason that people don't like calling. Because like, what if something like this happens?
And then it does happen, and you're like, all of my fear and anxiety was justified.
Exactly. Nonetheless, she then goes to this adult video store with the book, and this like lady who works there comes and she's like, can I help you? And she's like, yeah, I have this book for Nino. And the lady's like, oh, yeah, well, he's not here right now. He works at the fun fair on Wednesdays. But, and then Amelie's kind of like asking this lady about him, like, oh, like, why does he do this? And she says, I don't know. You know, he used to collect pictures of footprints in wet cement. And for a while, he had this hobby of, like, recording funny laughs that he heard. So, like, he's just this really weird, eccentric guy who, like, again, finds, like, joy in the little things, essentially. And the lady at the video store says, yeah, I'll take it from you, thanks. And Amelie's like, no, I have some time. I'll go to the fun fair. So the lady's like, okay, suit yourself. He works in the ghost train, so ask for him there. So she goes to the ghost train and asks for a ticket to, like, go on it. He's not working at the ticket counter. He works, like, inside the ride, essentially. He's dressed up as a skeleton. And as she's, like, going through, just, like, on the cart, she's not scared at all. But he, like, comes up and, like, in behind her kind of goes, like, ooh. And then, like, real creepily, like, kind of runs his skeleton hands, like, over her cheek.
Ew.
I know, it's, like, very creepy, but at the same time, like, kind of cute.
Uh-huh.
And it's very strange.
I would have punched this guy. I'm straight up. If a random stranger...
but she knew it was him.
Okay.
And she was purposely looking for him. So I think she was okay with it.
Less likely to punch this man now.
Yes. So anyway, she's seen him. She still doesn't give the book back, though. She's found his little pedal bike again and easily could have put the book back in the little, like, carriage bag, but instead tapes a picture to his handlebars, and on the back of it she's written, do you want to meet me? Anyway, he, like, has this picture, and it's, like, of these four layouts of this one guy. And they're, like, hanging on his bulletin board in his room, and he's, at this point, obviously dreaming, but the picture, like, comes to life and starts talking to him. And so all four pictures, they're like, do you want to know about her? And he's like, yeah, what's she like? Is she pretty? And, like, three of the pictures, like, yeah, she's pretty. And one of them goes, no, she's beautiful. And the other three are like, no, she's just pretty. And he's like, well, what does she want with me? And one of them says, oh, she's broke. She wants a reward for the book. And the other says, no, she likes to collect photos too, and she wants to swap us for a one-eyed man with glasses. And Nino, like, gets frustrated with them and, like, brushes them off. And they're like, no, wait. She's in love. She wants to meet you. Uh-huh. And he's like, well, do I know her? And they're like, yes. And he's like, since when? And one of them says, and this is, like, I don't know, it's, like, very sweet when he says it, and I'm not going to be able to replicate it in the same way, but he says, of course you've known her. Forever. In your dreams. And it's just so cute. And I love it
That's such a cheesy line.
It's adorable, though. So anyway, he does want to meet her, and he, like, puts up signs now in, like, all over the metro station that say when and where. She gets a note to him somehow to, like, meet her at the Montmartre carousel, which is this big carousel at the bottom of this steep hill with this big church on it. If you've ever been to Paris, you probably know what I'm talking about.
I have never been to Paris, but...
Believe me, it's a steep hill.
All right, fair enough.
So anyway, he goes there, and she uses the tactic again with the payphones, where he's answering the phone, and she tells him, follow the blue arrows. So he follows these arrows all the way up the hill. He gets up there to this, like, oh gosh, you know those telescope things that you can, like, put a quarter into and they, like, look at specific things around the city at tourist spots? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so he looks through one of those, and she has it positioned to look down where he had been at the carousel with his bike, where she now is with the book. She, like, waves the book and puts it in his bag finally, and he, like, tries to sprint down the hill after her and doesn't get there in time. Mm-hmm. But he now has his book back, and she says, come to the 2 windmills. So he's gonna go there, except he's late. And it's really, she, like, is worried about what's happened. She's like, oh no, what if he, like, somehow didn't get the message, or, what if he got kidnapped by bandits and he was in a plane crash in Russia and now he's having to live in Turkmenistan with goats for the rest of his life? Like, just jumping to these wild conclusions.
I can't say I haven't been like that in my life.
Exactly. I think we all have. It's very relatable. So he finally, like, comes in a little after 4 o'clock, which is fine. He orders a coffee, and Gina brings it over to him. But Amelie goes and, like, creepily stands behind his booth at the cafe, and there's, like, this glass wall above it, and she's, like, just strangely, like, looking through the glass at him. He, like, kind of turns around, like, sensing that she's there, and she immediately pulls this marker out and, like, starts writing the menu on the window, essentially, like, oh, no, I'm just doing my job. And he looks at her, and he'd found in the book her picture that she was, like, in disguise. She dressed up as Zorro to be in disguise. And he has the picture, and he's like, this is you, isn't it? And she loses confidence, and she doesn't say yes. She says, no, it's not me. But anyway, so obviously no one meets him at the cafe because she said it wasn't her. So he just gets up and leaves after he's done with his coffee.
Oh, no.
And then more special effects. She, like, melts into a puddle on the floor. And it's really sad.
I've been there too.
Yeah. However, she has still had more good doings going on. With the letters that were found on Mount Blanc, she got this great idea to make the concierge in her apartment feel better about her dead husband. So she stole the old letters that he'd written from the army, made copies of them, and returned the letters back before the concierge knew that they were missing. She then, like, made a ransom note with them by, like, basically cutting out words and making her own letter, and she, like, stained it with tea and made it look all old and tattered, and then mailed it to the concierge with, like, this official looking letter that's like, we apologize for the delay of this delivery. It was recently uncovered from the plane crash. And basically the letter that she'd written had been like, I've seen the error in my ways, and I hope you can forgive me and join me here in Colombia, and we can live out the rest of our days forever, my love. So the concierge is all happy, but Amelie comes in, and she's all sad from her plan having just failed with Nino. And the concierge is like, do you believe in miracles? And she says, not today. And it's very sad.
Oh.
Yeah. However, the glass man, he kind of knows, somehow he knows what's going on. And he kind of knows that Amelie has failed this plan. He calls all these little schemes that she comes up with her stratagems.
Okay.
And he's of the opinion that she has too many stratagems and she just needs to be more direct. So he finally puts his camera to good use and videos himself saying basically that, like, you need to go out and get him. Well, somehow Nino had found where Amelie lives. I think it was Gina had told him, because she was kind of in on this as well when Amelie had brought Nino to the 2 windmills, or asked him to come. So then Gina somehow, like, catches up with him and is like, I need to make sure that you're a decent fellow first, because I'm worried about Amelie. And she, like, vets him, and he's fine. So she tells him where she lives. He comes and knocks on her door, but she's too scared to open it still. And he, like, puts a note under it that's like, I'll be back, don't worry. And she gets all sad and worried, like, oh no, what if he doesn't come back? And she's thinking, like, sad thoughts. Oh. And she finally decides, no, I just gotta go. So she goes rushing out her door, but as she opens it, he's there. He's come back already. It's only been, like, 2 minutes. But he's back. And so she, like, brings him inside right away. And they do that, like, you know how the French do that weird kiss ritual where they, like, kiss on each side of the face? They, like, do that in slow motion, and I'm not sure what the point of it is. It's kind of awkward. But then after that, we, like, move down to the glass man's house, where he had been, like, he had his video camera, and Lucien was there with him, because I think he was helping with some aspect of this. And Lucien is, like, spying on them with the video camera through the window, and we can see that they're, like, legit making out. And the glass man, like, makes Lucian turn the video camera off. And then the final scene is like everybody kind of going about their happy lives. And like we see some more just like random things around Paris, like weird little random coincidences happening. And then Nino and Amelie are just cruising around Paris on Nino's little bike and having a grand old time.
Oh.
Yeah, so it doesn't have much of a plot, but it's really, really sweet.
Okay.
And that's all.
It's kind of one of those vibe movies.
Yeah.
Got it.
Definitely a vibe. All right. Let's see. For questions. What is a strange vegetable that comes up twice in the movie?
Vegetable.
I'll give you some options. It's artichokes, eggplants, endives, or olives.
I'm gonna go with olives.
No, it is this weird vegetable called an endive.
What is an endive?
I am looking it up right now.
Okay. I'm too uncultured to know what this thing is.
Apparently it's a type of lettuce.
Oh. It's a fancy lettuce.
Fancy lettuce. Yeah, but there's one time, like the first time we meet Lucian, he's like handling each little endive at the grocery store like very carefully like a baby bird. And then the second time we encounter it is at the two windmills. They say the menu of the day is endives. That's the only question I can really come up with right now.
It's fine. I understand.
Sorry. This is the Sunday night recording vibes that we bring.
Sunday night recording vibes post 1 week long power outage. We good. Yeah, I got you.
All right. So what do we do now?
So now I have a quote for you.
Perfect.
So it's gonna be two people talking to each other.
Okay.
It is Sunday and no letters have arrived. Fine day Sunday, in my opinion. The best day of the week. Why is that? Because there's no post on Sundays.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Do you not know this?
I don't.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Okay. Oh no. I'm hoping you will after I tell you what it is.
Hopefully I will.
Listener, if you know about it, you can let us know on our Facebook or tweet at us or send us a message on Instagram at Nerd of the Week using the hashtag Nerd of the Week or NOTWP. And you can tell Allison what this quote is.
I'm sorry, I don't know it. Oh, I feel so bad.
I don't know if you like this media, so I'm going to find out at the end of this podcast if you have familiarity with this media or not. So,
All right, sounds good.
All right. I am bringing Lilo and Stitch to the table.
Oh, a fine movie indeed.
A fine movie indeed. Originally, it was because I thought that Lilo feeds the Pudge the fish on Sundays. Turns out it's actually Thursdays. However, I thought she religiously fed the fish peanut butter sandwiches on Sundays. So that's why I thought of this movie. And then I stuck with my guns because it was the first thing that came to mind, and that's how word association works.
You know, that's okay. That was kind of what I did for this, and I just had to prove that there was some sort of Sunday in it. So, you're fine.
It's all good. And there is the line really early on where after Lilo has some nonsense happen, her teacher goes, "We'll try again on Sunday." So it's all good. We got it quoted in there somehow. But Lilo and Stitch is a Disney animation, I think it's hand-drawn movie that was released in 2002. Not 2022. That would have been wild. And it is a movie that I think did really, really well. And a lot of people like it. It had It was the movie that when Frozen was coming out, and everyone's like, look, Disney's for the first time portrayed sisterly love, and there's not a romance in it. And I'm like, what about Lilo and Stitch, though?
Hey, what about this one?
Hey, what about this one? This one was also a good one, and there was no romance in this one. There was no love interest.
I mean, there kind of was, but like
there was David. Yeah. So we start off in there's the Galactic Federation, and Dr. Jumba Jukiba, something. Dr. Jumba is on trial for illegal genetic experimentation, and they are like shouting his crimes at him, and he's like, I never would have ever dreamed of, and then they pop up his genetic experimentation creature, which is Stitch, and he goes, make more than one of them? Question mark. Clearly you've caught my experiment. And he refers to Stitch as experiment 626, which is a like dog-looking blue creature that has supposedly like unparalleled strength and intelligence and can like home in on things 300 miles away and has see in the dark, and he's indestructible and was literally built to be a weapon of mass destruction. Pure
He's a
chaos.
strong boy.
He's a strong boy. And the lady who the Grand Councilwoman, who I don't think she has like another name than that, but she who is putting him on trial is like, this, you can't do this. Like, one, we can't make genetic experiments. Like, you've literally created life without like following the proper guidelines. And then two, you literally created this destructive weapon, and it's going to endanger all of us. So she imprisons Jumba, and then 626 is going to be exiled on a desert asteroid, which admittedly probably not the best plan if Jumba has told them, hey, this thing can make, or is like super intelligent, super smart. If you left Stitch alone on a deserted asteroid for a long period of time, I do believe he would have figured out how to make a spaceship. And then everyone would have just had to deal with the fallout of that.
He just doesn't seem that smart.
He's very smart, supposedly. Like, he's got all the cold calculating. He's also just got like chaotic goblin energy, though. So he just wants to destroy. So he's very good at it, and if it takes him a while, I think he could figure out how to destroy things better. But he just goes the path of least resistance first. Oh. So, Captain Gantu is charged with taking Stitch to the asteroid. So he is locked up, hanging upside down with guns that are like locked onto his genetic material. And then Gantu is like making fun of Stitch and being like, you're gonna suffer for a long time, because Gantu is just kind of a jerk. And Stitch like bites him in the finger, and then he's like trying to shoot him with the gun, and like Gantu is like this giant creature, like huge alien that's probably like 20 feet tall, and this little tiny alien's like, sir, I would like you to remind you that you are on duty and you cannot kill the prisoner. And Gantu's like, fine, and then goes to captain his ship, and they drive off, fly off, I guess, towards this asteroid. And while Stitch is just alone with the one guard, which seems silly that we only have one guard and then these two guns, it seems like you would want more for Stitch. Stitch figures out that the guns will lock onto his saliva, because that's also his genetic material. So he starts like spitting like a camel out so that the guns will start shooting fire, because it thinks that Stitch has escaped. So they start shooting at it. So he aims it towards the guard that's monitoring him, and very quickly escapes this ship. And the workers at the spaceship, the bridge, that's what it's called, because we're in space. It's kind of set up like the Star Trek bridge, where like the captain's chair is right in the middle, and then like it's like straight up was just riffed from how the bridge was set up, with like navigation right in front, and then like people to the right and the left that all have like clearly defined jobs, and if you look at them for a little while, you're like, yep, that was probably Spock's position and this and that and whatever. But regardless, the one's like, I'm pretty sure he just escaped from the ship. I think he took a police cruiser. And then another alien goes, yeah, he took the red one, as you watch Stitch just go flying by on a red police cruiser in space, then being chased by the actual police escort. Like, I think there's like a full fleet of ships that were following the prison cargo bay. And they start shooting at Stitch's ship, and then he the things like, do not jump into hyperdrive, unsafe, will explode. And so Stitch naturally like pulls the thing and like causes it to jump into hyperdrive and just sends it off into some chaotic distance. And then we get a snapshot back to the Grand Councilwoman being like, wait, he escaped already? Like, where is it going to land? And then this woman goes, some planet called Earth? And they're like, oh, Earth's made of mostly water. He'll probably just land in water. And it looks like he's gonna land in the ocean based on the trajectory. And then it zooms in and zooms in and zooms in, and then it's Hawaii, specifically the island of Kauai. And the Grand Councilwoman just goes, of course, he's gonna land there. And then she's like, well, we have to dispatch. We can just gas the planet. We'll just forego it, like straight up, like going to just execute this entire planet. And Agent Pleakley,
did they care that it's inhabited?
No, they didn't care, because there was no intelligent life that they could see on Earth. And then that old chestnut. And Agent Pleakley shows up and is like, hold everything. I would like to remind you that Earth is a sanctuary for an endangered species, and it's the mosquito. We are rehabbing the mosquito population. Because apparently we care about mosquitoes.
No.
And then the Grand Councilwoman's like, oh, great, so I can't gas the planet. And so Pleakley goes, we can't show aliens to these people. They're not ready yet. They haven't developed. They're not spacefaring. Like, they cannot join the Galactic Council. They're not smart enough for that. And we can't, like, disturb their peace, anything like that. Kind of like Star Trek Federation rules. Like, if they have not developed to this point, we just don't do it yet. Mm-hmm. And that's just towards Earth this time. And then so she's like, well, what do you suggest I do? And then Pleakley says, we should send someone after him. Does he have, like, a brother or a dad or like a really good barber that he's friends with, as they're like going through and walking towards the prison where they locked up Jumba. And Jumba turns and looks, and the Grand Councilwoman and Pleakley are standing there, and he goes, escaped already? And they're like, all right, we will trade your freedom for you going and getting Experiment 626. And Jumba goes, only if I get a plasma gun. And she goes, fine, plasma gun granted. You have like a week to catch this guy. And then Pleakley's like, you're going to let a mad scientist arrested for illegal genetic experimentation loose? Who's going to watch him? And the Grand Councilwoman goes, why, you are. You're going to deal with it, Pleakley, because this is no longer my problem. And then she just like walks away, and Pleakley is looking at Jumba, and Jumba's like, so what unfortunate planet did 626 get released on? Like, way too excited about the destruction that's about to ensue with Stitch. And then we have opening credits for Lilo and Stitch, and there is the shot of a fish. It's like a orangey, fishy looking friend who's eating a peanut butter jelly sandwich, and then it kind of zooms out, and Lilo is swimming in the ocean, and she's running from there frantically to get to her hula dancing lessons, and she shows up, and they have I don't know the name of the song that plays for the opening credits, but it's the one like that everyone knows.
Traditional, not necessarily traditional, but like Hawaiian folk song, kind of.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think it's He Mele no Lilo, and it's very classic to this I think it was written for this movie, but it was written with like the Hawaiian people, Hawaiian music in mind. And what I do know, which is really cool about this movie, is they took a lot of time working with Hawaiian natives to make sure that they were as true to the traditions as they could be. For like the dance, they had actual Hawaiian dancers to model all of the movements after and that kind of stuff. So like they tried to keep it as true to the culture as possible. And so they're having that dance lesson, and then Lilo sneaks in to slip in to the dance. And so she finishes right up at the end, but because she's dripping wet and because she came from the ocean, the other young girls who Lilo calls her friends, they all slip and fall. And then Lilo's teacher is like, Lilo, why are you wet? And she goes, because it's Thursday. Which makes no sense whatsoever. And she's like, every Thursday I feed Pudge the fish a peanut butter sandwich, but we didn't have peanut butter today, and Nani told me to just feed him tuna. I can't feed Pudge tuna. Do you know what tuna is? And he's like, it's fish. And she's like, it's fish. If I feed Pudge fish, I'm a sociopath. So I had to go to the store, get peanut butter, and then give the fish. And then he asks, why does Pudge need a peanut butter sandwich every Thursday? And then Lilo goes, because he controls the weather. And all the adults like glance around at each other. And later in the movie, you find out that Lilo and Nani's parents got into a car accident and died. And so Lilo's connected this fish to, if she doesn't give him a peanut butter sandwich every Thursday, something bad will happen. And so it's become this ritual for her to try to protect the people still in her life. So the first time I watched this movie, I completely missed the like concerned glances through all the adults, because then it immediately goes to the kids just making fun of her for this kind of ridiculous behavior. And then they make like kind of a off-color comment, and Lilo jumps on one of the girls and like punches her in the face and bites her. And the teacher has to pull her off of, I think the girl's name is Myrtle, and pull her off of Myrtle. And Lilo's just like, but I just want to dance. And he's like, the teacher's very nice and like trying to give her as much space as she needs, but is like, you just like bit a girl. I can't let you dance right now, so you're going to sit outside. And he tells her to wait for Nani to come get her. And then Lilo immediately does not wait for Nani to come get her because all the other girls have left. And Lilo went to try to apologize and say like, I'm sorry that I bit you. Can we play dolls together? And then she shows them her doll, which is like kind of like a voodoo doll that she like stitched together. It is kind of like all effed up and sad looking, and they're kind of gross. And the girls are just weirded out by Lilo, and unfortunately they make fun of her, and then they leave as she's trying to explain that her doll, because its head's so big, she likes to pretend that there's spiders who laid eggs in her head. And then she like looks up and no one's there, and Lilo's all sad, so she walks back home. And from there we see her older sister Nani running quickly. She's running late. She was supposed to pick up Lilo from the dance class. She runs to the dance class. Lilo's not on the front porch like she's supposed to be. Then runs across until hopefully Lilo's just got home. And she kicks a car and calls the car that almost like hits her stupid head. And then proceeds to run up the house. And Elvis, a song from Elvis is playing, and she tries to open the door, but Lilo has literally nailed the door shut. And so Nani has like trying to crawl through the dog door and like pull off the nails as she's like, I'm going to come in there and I'm going to yell at you. Like, we have a social worker coming. Like, I'm going to like, I'm going to parade you and I'm going to feed you to the social worker, and he's going to ask, like, what is your special ingredients? Because you're going to taste so good. Like, just classic, like, sister making, like, empty threats at sister. And then the social worker, whose name is Cobra Bubbles, which is my favorite thing. And he's, like, this very large, scary, imposing-looking man. And he goes, you're going to what? And she goes, it's made with love and kindness, ? And she's like, who are you? And he goes, I'm him the stupid head. And she's like, oh, crap, I kicked your car.
Aww.
And so Nani has to take him around the back to get in the house because Lilo nailed the door shut and she can't open the front door. And Cobra tries to talk to Lilo, and Lilo starts with a practice speech of how she gets 3 meals a day and she's well taken care of and never left alone. And then she interprets Nani's coaching wrong and then says, and then I'm disciplined. And he goes, disciplined? And she's like, yeah, sometimes 5 times a day. Sometimes she'll throw me in a bag. And because Lilo's got this wild imagination. And Cobra's raised eyebrow look at Nani, who's like, I just failed this social worker visit. I'm in trouble. And then so she pulls Lilo aside, talks to Cobra. He's like, this did not go well, if you're wondering. And then he goes to say goodbye to Lilo, and he's like, if you're ever left home alone again, call this number. As Lilo is taking forks that she's dressed up to look like the girls who made fun of her and putting them into a jar next to a book that's practical voodoo for dummies. And she's like, my friends need to be punished. And she's shaking the jar aggressively. And Lilo is just a strange kid that I've related to my entire life. So Cobra leaves, and then Lilo and Nani get into a fight, and Nani is shouting and being like, do you want to be taken away? What is happening? Why are you so impossible? And they're shouting at each other, and classic sister fighting. And then after they fight for a little bit, Lilo goes up into her room, and Nani comes up and's like, I'm sorry we fought. And Lilo says the sweetest line of, I love you more as a sister than a mom. And recognizes that Nani's trying, but this is hard on everyone.
Yeah.
So to try to help her with Lilo's grief with everything and then the fight, Nani decides that Lilo can adopt a dog. And so Lilo is praying for someone to send her an angel, the nicest angel they have, so that she can have someone to take care of and take care of her. Mm-hmm. And then splice scene to Stitch crash landing on the planet and then jumping out and laughing maniacally behind a green backdrop, which is one of my favorite scenes in this movie. And Stitch gets out. He is looking around. There is a frog that kind of jumps on him that he tries to shoot a couple times, and while he's distracted, he gets run over by a logging truck. And literally takes out every single tire in this truck.
Oh,
and
okay.
The guys driving the truck come out, and they look, and they're like, I think it's a dog. Is it still alive? And Stitch moves a little bit. And so they bring it to the shelter. So Nani takes Lilo to this shelter and the next morning, and they're talking to the nice worker at the front desk of the shelter saying, hey, you can go pick out whatever dog you want. We got lots of adoptable dogs. And they walk in, and all of the dogs are terrified of Stitch, and they're hiding up in the rafters because they do not want to interact with him. And so the only dog there that Lilo can see is Stitch, and he has looked around and has realized that his only way out of this is to pretend to be a dog.
Because he is smart.
He is smart, and he can hear Jumba and Pleakley out in the woods trying to hunt him, so he can't go outside because they'll shoot him. And so he pretends to be a dog, and Lilo goes, hi, and Stitch tries to say hi back, and she's like, wait, you can talk? This is the best dog ever. So she takes Stitch and brings him back up front as the the Humane Society worker and Nani are talking, and she's like, yeah, all of our dogs are very adoptable, very friendly, good with kids, except for that one, as Stitch comes out, and then Nani grabs Lilo and pulls it back, and it's like, what is that? And she's like, I think it's a dog. It was dead this morning. And she's like, what? It was dead this morning? And he's like, it got run over by a truck. And I'm like, why didn't you bring this thing to a veterinarian?
Yeah, you went to the wrong place.
You went to the Humane Society, which kudos for you for trying, but you took it to the Humane Society and not a vet. Anyway, through conversation, Lilo's like, nope, I want this dog. It's the only dog. And so Nani gets talked into buying Stitch. So they pay for Stitch and then they leave. And then immediately Stitch is like using Lilo as like a shield. And so because Jumbo's about to fire a shot and Pleakley like pulls his gun up and the shot goes wide. And so Lilo never sees this, but Jumbo and Pleakley are always kind of in the background trying to capture Stitch when he's gotten away from Lilo. So he has to stay very, very close to her so that they can't see her. They can't be exposed to aliens. That night, after like a bunch of chaos with like Stitch destroying a bunch of things and then just constantly being a menace, truly like a brand new puppy for most people.
Yeah, like in the grand scheme of things, really not that bad.
Not that bad. Just being a puppy. Lilo is, they're at a like fake touristy luau where Nani works, kind of off in the corner eating dinner. And, Lilo is explaining to Stitch his badness level. And she's like, this is your badness level and it's higher for someone of your size. And we're going to work on that and make you a model citizen.
Aww.
And then we go to...
I remember the badness chart.
It's just like a really crappy drawing of Stitch and most of it's colored in red.
Yeah.
And we meet David at the luau, and he is like a fire dancer. And I think he catches fire to the stage. And so Nani's worried about him. It's like, did you catch fire again? He's like, no, I just the stage this time. I'm fine. And he tries to ask Nani out, and she's like, I just can't. The social worker is coming, and this isn't a good time. Mm-hmm. And David's just like, okay. And so he, makes Lilo laugh a little bit, and is like clearly just cares about these two. Mm-hmm. And they step away for a second, and you see it pan to Jumbo and Pleakley in like human disguises. They're not great disguises. Like Pleakley's literally got a wig on, and that's it. And like Jumbo's got like a touristy hat on.
Wait, doesn't one of them only have one eye as well?
Yeah. Pleakley has one eye and Jumbo has 4 eyes. And
there are too many eyes between the two of them, but not even in the right configuration. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so like they stick out like a sore thumb, but no one seems to notice them. And then Stitch kind of wanders away for a second because he smells food. And then Jumbo tries to grab him, and he bites Pleakley in the head. And then Nani realizes that it's Stitch doing this, so he like pulls Stitch off of Pleakley, and then she's like, your head looks swollen. And she's like, Pleakley's pretending to be a woman, and is like, no, I'm fine. And Jumbo makes this comment of, she's just ugly. and
Pleakley's like, yeah, just like so blunt and real.
So, unfortunately, this chaos, Nani gets blamed for bringing her dog to work and, like, doesn't even get a warning, is just straight up fired. And so they go home and dejected, and Cobra shows up to tell her, like, he can ignore a lot of things, but if she doesn't have a job to pay for Lilo, like, she's got 3 days to figure it out, otherwise he has to take Lilo away. And so the rest of the day is spent trying to get Nani answering want ads, trying to find a job. And Stitch, I think threw like a book at Cobra's head and like broke his glasses. And so he's like, I want Stitch to, this dog, whatever the heck this is, this needs to be better and a model citizen, and you need to have a job. So Lilo takes that as Elvis Presley was the best role model for a model citizen, so we're gonna try to do.
Was he though?
Oh, I
Wasn't
couldn't
he
tell
literally
you.
popular because he broke the rules?
He broke the rules a lot.
I didn't see the Elvis documentary. I don't know what happened.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure he like shook his hips on television, which was very scandalous at the time, and also probably did a lot of drugs. However, in Lilo's mind, Elvis was the king and a model citizen.
Okay.
And so she's trying to teach Stitch how to be a model citizen. So the setup with Nani trying to interview for a job as Lilo's like teaching Stitch to hula dance and teaching Stitch to play the guitar and teaching Stitch to flirt with the ladies. And every single time something happens where like he gets overwhelmed or like he just hates it or he just like wants to destroy something. So like in the background, Nani keeps losing the job because she's connected to Lilo and Stitch.
Oh.
And so they kind of have this long bad day of trying to find work and it not working out, and then everything being Stitch's problem. The last one ending at a beach where the lifeguard told Nani, like, actually, I might have a position for you. And Stitch is, like, straight up dressed up in the, like, white sparkle Elvis costume, like, performing. And he does really well for a minute. And then all of the tourists are all excited, so they start taking pictures, and the flashing light freaks Stitch out. So then he starts attacking people and then causes, like, a mass stampede. And they all run away.
How
and
is
then
that, like...
That's right. That's not Nani's fault at all. And also, Nani, if she was thinking, she could have been like, I don't know what that is. That just randomly attacked people. Like, how is that my problem?
Right.
But
Poor girl.
Yeah. So Nani and Lilo are sitting next to the overturned lifeguard stand, and David shows up with some surfboards, and he's like, what happened? And Lilo goes, we've had a bad day. And David's like, I'm no doctor, but you know what will make you happy? Surfing. So they go surfing and have a good time surfing, and Stitch gets dragged along riding some of the waves and starts to have fun and starts to have like an actual connection with Nani, David, and Lilo. And so the first round goes okay, and they're having a good time, and then they're building a sandcastle, and Stitch is really sad that he's not included in the sandcastle building.
Aww.
So he like pulls the surfboard up to them and like wanting to go back out into the water, and Jumbo's watching and being like, why would Stitch go back into the water? He can't swim. He like, why is he choosing to possibly drown? Like, is he actually trying to form connections right now? Like, Jumbo's like watching his experiment evolve. Aww. And so they have some more fun surfing, but then Jumbo goes into the water and like takes out Nani and Lilo and Stitch on the surfboard, and they lose track of the board and they fall into the water. And David comes out to make sure they're okay, and Stitch, swimming up to the surface, had like climbed up on top of Lilo because he can't swim, and Jumbo like grabbed Lilo and pulled them down under the water. So they David and Nani dive under the water, pull Stitch away from Lilo, get her back up. David goes back down, saves Stitch, and then they pull them out and then get them out onto the beach. And of course, Cobra Bubbles just happens to be there and is like, I'm going to pick up Lilo tomorrow. And I was like, one, they took her surfing. People fall off surfboards. Like, he was not endangering her. Like, this is fine. But I understand, but also it probably would have been fine. So Lilo and Nani go home, and David makes, like, the most harsh comment ever to Stitch of, you know, I really thought they had a chance, and then you showed up. And Stitch just, like, gets real sad and, like, realizes he done effed up.
No. Not his fault.
He's just designed to be a murder monster. It's fine. So, Stitch decides to leave. He is gonna just leave the family. He's listening to Nani try to explain to Lilo what's going to happen. And they have the Ohana means family. Family means no one gets left behind or forgotten. And Stitch chooses to leave because he is not part of this family and he's messing them up. And so he goes out.
And he is part of the family. He's not messing them up.
He's a good boy. And so he goes out into the woods and just stays there. And he had discovered this book that was basically the ugly duckling, and the ugly duckling actually being a goose, and then saying that they were lost and his family showed up to find him. And so he's out in the woods, like, hoping his family will show up. But instead he gets Jumba and Pleakley, who are like, your family's not coming. You were an experiment. You were made. I'm going to, take you back, and I'm going to take you apart. And, I think Jumba would have gotten Stitch to go with him had he not said the last line of, I'm going to take you apart. And so Stitch is like, not about that, and, runs away. Mm-hmm. And then we go back to Lilo and Nani having a bad morning, and David shows up going, I think I found you a job. We got to go quick. So Nani leaves Lilo at the house for a couple minutes so that she can go apply for this job with David, and that's when Stitch shows up being chased by Jumba and Pleakley, because they have now been fired by the Galactic Councilwoman, so they Jumba no longer has to follow the rules of, don't kill innocents, don't show your face. He's just now on a mission to catch Stitch.
Oh, no.
So they destroy the house. It explodes. They spend a lot of time, and so Lilo takes all of this in stride. Two random aliens have now shown up, are attacking her dog, and she's just like, okay, let's go. So she helps Stitch home alone their way through a bunch of hijinks to try to just get them at bay. And then she calls Cobra Bubbles and is like, aliens are attacking my house. And then someone grabs the phone and it's Pleakley, and he's like, no aliens, everything's fine. And Cobra's like, who's that? And she's like, oh, it's okay. My dog found the chainsaw, and hangs up on Cobra. So rightfully, Cobra's a little concerned.
Yeah. Oh my.
And so he drives, and the house is straight up exploded. I think they're Stitch threw a car at Jumba, and then there was a gun that they put a carrot in the top, and it was because it was a plasma gun. It built up all this pressure and it exploded. Mm-hmm. And then Nani has just gotten the job, and she looks, and there's just the fire department coming, and she's like, oh crap, don't turn left. And it turns left up towards her house. And she runs, and Cobra is putting Lilo into his car and is like, you left her alone? The house exploded. What do you want me to do? This is not good for her. And Lilo realizes what happened, so she runs away. She gets out the other side of the car and runs out into the woods to try to find Stitch, and she does. And Stitch has found a picture of her parents that she kept under the pillow, and it was the only picture she has of her parents. Oh. And it's got a little bit of some burns on it, but otherwise it's okay. So he's trying to give it back to her, and she's yelling at him, and they're having a moment when Captain Gantu appears and shoots them with a net and captures them and is like, all right, let's go, I'm bringing you back, and throws them into a glass vial to put on the back of the ship for some reason. And Nani has run out to try to find Lilo, and then sees this 20-foot alien kidnap her sister and stick her in a ship and then fly off. And Jumba and Pleakley happen to be there and Stitch has managed to squeeze his way out of the container, but Lilo's stuck on the ship. So Stitch falls back to Earth, and Lilo's now being flown away up into the galaxy. And Jumbo and Pleakley capture Stitch, and Nani's like, wait, do you know who my sister is? She's a little girl, she's got black hair, and she hangs around with that thing, and she points to Stitch. And Jumbo's like, yeah, we know who she is. And Pleakley's like, don't engage, she doesn't know we're aliens. And so Stitch feels terrible and turns to Jumba and is like, hey, we should help them. And Jumba has my favorite interaction with Stitch, which is you want me to just drop everything and help them just like that? Just like that? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, all right. And then Pleakley goes, wait, you're going to help him? And he's like, he's very persuasive.
Yeah.
See, just it's fine. He made a compelling argument. The argument was yes, but he made a compelling argument.
Very emphatic that yes.
And Jumba shows Stitch the spaceship they came in, and so then they get... I don't know if Nani goes on the spaceship or not. I don't think she does. But Jumba, Pleakley, and Stitch are on the spaceship, and they fly up to go get Lilo, and shenanigans ensue with a full airship space battle, and Gantu's ship kind of loses control, but they manage to get Lilo. And I guess the original scene, because they have a scene where they're flying and weaving through the Kauai mountains, but it was originally supposed to be through Honolulu, the main city, but 9/11 had just happened, and they're like, this is in poor taste. So they covered all of the buildings to look like the mountains. So if you look at the mountain coloring, it looks like the squares of buildings. But they fly through, and they manage to knock out Gantu and get Lilo and rescue her. And I think they crash Gantu's ship, but they land Jumba's ship. And when they land on the beach, the Grand Councilwoman is there with a small militia, and Cobra Bubbles is also there. And Stitch has been arrested and is getting taken into custody. And the Grand Councilwoman's talking to Cobra, and she goes, "You look familiar." And he's like, "Roswell, 1973. I can," and she's like, "Oh yeah, you had hair then. CIA, right?" And you're like, so the social worker used to work for the CIA? That's solid.
Yeah, that's a big career change, I'd say.
And so Stitch asks to say goodbye to Nani and Lilo, and the Grand Councilwoman's surprised that he's showing empathy and an attachment to people, and goes, "Okay, you can say goodbye to these people. Who are they?" And he goes, "This is my family. It's little and broken, but it's my family and it's good." And it's the most heartbreaking, sad little scene. And the Grand Councilwoman also kind of has that "Oh no, I'm destroying this family" moment.
Oh no.
And Cobra goes, "Wait, didn't you buy Stitch?" And so Lilo goes up and she goes, "3 days ago, I bought Stitch at the shelter. So if you take him from me, you're stealing." And so the Grand Councilwoman can use this as technically it's her property. So she goes, he's going to be exiled and live out his exile on Earth. And be entrusted to the care of Lilo and Nani, and therefore this family is under the protection of the Galactic Federation. Damn. And then the Grand Councilwoman is standing next to her guards after she talks to Cobra, who's like, "This is going to be really hard to explain." And she's like, "I understand. I got to go explain this to a bunch of people too." And as she walks away, she's looking at Jumba and Pleakley, and she whispers to her guards, "Do not let those two on my ship." And then everything kind of wraps up really well. And so they help rebuild the house. So Jumba, Pleakley are now stuck on Earth with Nani and Lilo and Stitch, and Cobra seems to be adopted into the family, and they have a cute montage of them building back up the house to the song of "Burning Love" by Elvis. And then there's a bunch of pictures of them having a cute happy life, and that's Lilo and Stitch.
Yay!
It's so cute. I love this movie.
When I was in, I guess, a senior in high school, it was this weird thing during Spirit Week leading up to homecoming, where basically the senior girls would break up into teams, and we'd stay up all night making costumes, and then in the wee hours of the morning go kidnap the senior boys.
Okay.
And bring them over to whoever house we had made the costumes at, and we'd all go as a big group costume for the day. And my group decided that we all wanted to be Lilo and Stitch. So us girls were all Stitch, and the boys got to be Lilo.
I love that. I have 2 questions regarding the movie. The first is, how much did Stitch's license from the Humane Society cost? Was it $2, $5, $10, or it was free because they thought he was dead?
Gosh, I want to say $10.
It was $2.
$2. That's a bargain.
Right?
Even for a dead dog. You know how much cremation costs nowadays?
This is true. This is very valid. And then my second question is, when the movie aired on TV, they made an alteration to a scene where Lilo is hiding from Nani. What change did they make? So the Lilo is hiding behind the door instead of climbing into the dryer. Lilo is hiding in a laundry basket instead of hiding in the dryer. They altered the dryer to look like a table with a pizza box on the door. Or they altered the dryer to look like a laundry basket.
I feel like it would have been easiest to alter the dryer to look like a laundry basket.
So they altered it, but they actually made it look like a cabinet with a pizza box on the door. Which they were very worried that if kids saw a kid climb into the dryer to hide, that they'd be encouraging children to climb into dryers.
I see.
So they turned it into a cabinet, and like you can tell it was still a dryer. It's just colored a different color, and then they just made the door to the dryer look like a pizza box.
Which I guess to a kid you probably wouldn't like take too much notice of. Oh, that should be a dryer,
right?
I guess that was smart of them to do, though.
And yeah, those are my questions.
Nice, good questions. Better than my question.
All right.
Can you give me your quote again?
I can. So, it is Sunday and no letters have arrived. Fine day, Sunday, in my opinion. Best day of the week. And why is that? Because there's no post on Sundays?
Okay, I think it might be this one movie that I can't remember the name of, but I'm going to briefly describe it.
Okay.
And you'll know right away from the beginning if it's not this movie or not.
Okay.
Of what this is. My goodness, that was all very bad grammar. You'll know if I'm describing the right thing. So there's these two old guys that live in Minnesota.
No, it's not this movie.
Okay. I don't know
Are
what
you talking
it
about
is.
Secondhand Lions?
No.
Two old guys in Minnesota.
I thought it was something like Two Angry Men, but then that's actually 12 Angry Men. But
Okay.
gosh, the movie that I was thinking of, it's these two guys that live in Minnesota and they've been like best friends for ages, but their friendship is like we hate each other, kind of. But then one of their wives dies, and it's like this whole thing of like how he has to like be himself.
Fargo?
Now. Is that what that is? That might be. Is that? Oh my goodness! Is that a movie?
Fargo, I think there was like two guys who were friends. One kidnapped the wife or something. I don't know what movie you're talking about.
No, I don't think it's not Fargo.
Okay, so they're friends and
anyway,
the wife. Okay.
Two old men in Minnesota movie.
I need to know now.
Oh, Grumpy Old Men.
Oh, okay. No, it's not Grumpy Old Man.
Okay.
It is Harry Potter.
Oh.
It's right at the beginning of the movie when Harry's getting all of the letters to Hogwarts, and then he takes them out to that like lighthouse for the weekend, and he's like, no post on Sundays, nothing can show up, you can't go to Hogwarts.
That's right. I remember this now.
Okay.
Yes, I do know the Harry Potter movies, just apparently I had forgotten that part of it.
That's fair. There's a lot that happens.
If that's at the very beginning, there's, 8.5 movies after that I had to remember too?
That's completely fair.
All right.
All right.
So, what now?
What is
Now
our
that
next
we've
word?
talked for a long time.
What is our next word, generator?
The next word is zombie.
Zombie.
Zombie. All right.
I became a zombie. I don't actually know that song. I don't know what that song is.
I became a zombie? I'm thinking of the Cranberry song.
Zombie, zombie.
Zombie. Eh.
No, I think I'm thinking of a different song. I don't know what I'm thinking of. It's too late at night.
We can talk about zombie songs on the next episode.
Yeah. Maybe I'll bring a quote from a zombie song.
There you go.
We'll see.
There you go. There you go.
All right.
Thank you so much for you. Oh, God. One more time. Thank you, listeners, so much for tuning into our podcast. Allison and I have had a long week, so this sign-off's going to be short, sweet, and simple. We hope you have a great day, and remember, we're not a pyramid scheme.
But we could be.
We could be.
But we're not. Though we're not.
But we're not. We're just Stephanie and Allison, not a pyramid scheme. Goodbye.
And this is Third of the Week. Yeah. Bye.
Third of the Week. Yeah, that's our podcast. Bye.